Think about the last major decision your team made. Like, really picture the room.
Oh, I can picture it.
Right. And chances are, the final outcome of that big decision was actually decided in maybe the first 5 minutes of the meeting.
Yeah, probably by the person with the loudest voice.
Exactly. The loudest voice or the fanciest
Yeah.
title. And you
Oh.
probably didn't even realize it was happening.
It's a pretty terrifying thought when you put it that way, but it honestly happens every single day in corporate offices everywhere.
Which is wild. Because when we think about, communication with impact, we usually picture something highly produced.
Right, like a TED Talk or something.
Yeah, exactly. Someone standing on a brightly lit stage delivering this perfectly crafted, life-altering keynote speech. But for you, for me, for anyone navigating the actual day-to-day of their professional life, the stage isn't where the real stakes are.
No, not at all.
The most common and, frankly, the most frustrating venue for communication is just the conference room or, the video call grid. It's the meeting.
The humble, often dreaded meeting. I mean, it's where actual organizational momentum is either generated or just completely destroyed.
And that is exactly our focus for today's deep dive. We're unpacking this really fascinating piece of research from Francis Flynn at the Stanford Graduate School of Business. It's called Managing the Meeting.
It's such a good paper.
It really is. Our mission today is to take Flynn's insights and help you transform from a passive participant, the person just surviving the calendar invite, into a leader who actually harnesses collective wisdom to make better group decisions.
And to do that, we kind of have to rethink the baseline function of a meeting.
Okay, how so?
Well, at its core, a meeting exists to exchange information, formulate plans, and make decisions, right? But Flynn identifies this central, almost universal problem.
Which is what?
When a group needs to make a decision, their absolute most natural tendency is to jump straight into proposing solutions.
Oh, man, we have all seen that. Everyone sits down and immediately someone's like, okay, show of hands, who likes option A? Or I think we should just build the app.
Exactly.
They just throw out the fix before they've even had a real conversation about the problem itself.
And while that instinct feels really efficient because, our brains love checking things off a list, it's incredibly dangerous for group dynamics.
Because you're skipping the homework.
Right. You're entirely bypassing the information sharing phase.
It makes me think of, like, going to a terrible doctor.
Okay, go on.
Imagine walking into a clinic, and before you can even point to where your stomach hurts, the doctor just shoves a prescription pad in your face and says, take these twice a day, see you later.
You'd run out of the room.
You would, because they're writing the prescription before they've diagnosed the illness.
Yeah.
But we do this in business communication all the time.
That's a brilliant analogy. And in a meeting, when we write that prescription prematurely, we leave the door wide open for cognitive biases to step in.
Right.
Because without a structured flow of information, human brains take shortcuts. And those shortcuts just completely hijack the final outcome.
So let's dig into those shortcuts.
Uh,
The Stanford research highlights 4 specific cognitive biases that just thrive in unstructured meetings.
they really do.
The first one is anchoring. And what fascinates me about anchoring is how it acts like a gravitational pull on the entire room's communication.
It really does. I mean, anchoring happens because our brains crave a starting point, right?
Yeah.
Just to reduce cognitive load.
Make things easier.
Exactly. So the group ends up relying way too heavily on the very first piece of information or the first suggestion offered in the room.
Even if it's a bad one.
Even if it's terrible, whatever is said first literally drops in anger, and every subsequent idea gets compared to that initial point, rather than being evaluated on its own merit.
So if you're trying to figure out a budget shortfall and the boss walks in and casually says, I think we need to cut the marketing spend.
The entire next hour of communication is trapped orbiting the marketing budget.
Wow. Even if the real issue is like exorbitant shipping costs.
Precisely. The anchor artificially shrinks the boundaries of the discussion. And once that anchor is dropped, the second bias kicks in to cement it.
Which is confirmation bias.
Right. Confirmation bias. That's our unconscious habit of attaching massive weight to information that supports our existing beliefs, while totally discounting contradictory evidence.
Because we just love to be right.
We really do. So if someone brings up supply chain data that proves marketing isn't the problem, we unconsciously brush it aside because it doesn't fit the narrative we just anchored to.
It's like we have blinders on.
We do. And that leads directly to the third one, Overconfidence bias.
Oh, this is a dangerous one.
Very. When a group anchors on an idea and confirms it with their own bias, they suddenly start underestimating the complexity of the real world.
And overestimating their own abilities.
Exactly. They think they can control outcomes, so they take risks they definitely shouldn't take.
Like, we can definitely rebuild the entire software platform in 2 weeks, no problem.
Yes, it's this blind swagger that just takes over the room.
It's so common. And then there's the final bias Flynn outlines, which is the halo effect.
Right, the halo effect. This is where, if one aspect of an idea seems appealing, we unconsciously judge all of its other features favorably too.
Okay, wait, I have to push back on this one, or at least zoom in, because there's a specific detail in the text about the halo effect that genuinely blew my mind.
How about the slides?
Yes. The research notes that if a speaker uses highly polished presentation slides, the audience actually views the speaker's recommendations as more compelling.
They do.
Are we really that easily tricked by a nice color palette and a crisp font? I mean, doesn't that make us terrible communicators?
Well, what you're really seeing there isn't superficiality. It's an evolutionary shortcut.
How so?
In a high-stakes meeting, your brain is processing a massive amount of complex data. It takes immense energy to evaluate the raw statistics of a proposal.
Sure, it's exhausting.
Right. So your brain looks for proxies for competence. The polish of the slides acts as that proxy. Your brain whispers, well, the slides are rigorous and clean, therefore the underlying data must be rigorous and clean.
So if we leave communication unstructured, the person with the best graphic design skills wins the argument, not the person with the best data.
Essentially, yeah. Unstructured meetings are just playgrounds for these biases. If you don't control the environment, human nature will control it for you.
And rarely in a way that leads to actual impact.
Exactly. Which brings us to the core of Flynn's solution.
Right. If unstructured solution-first communication is the poison, structured inquiry is the antidote. We have to completely rewire how the conversation flows.
And it requires forcing the group to share information before they are allowed to decide on anything.
No jumping to the prescription.
Exactly. Flynn suggests an exact, non-negotiable chronological sequence you should guide your team through.
Okay, lay it on us.
First, what do we want? Second, what do we know? And finally, what do we do?
Want, know, do. I mean, it sounds beautifully simple, but it is the exact inverse of how most corporate conversations happen.
Oh, absolutely.
Usually it's a frantic do, know, want. Like a team rushes to build a new product feature the do, then they look at user data to justify it the know.
Right, trying to back it up.
Yeah, and they never even bother to ask if the feature aligns with the company's actual long-term goals, the want.
But by enforcing Flynn's sequence, you physically prevent the premature prescription. You establish goals, put all the facts on the table, and only then explore solutions.
Getting all those facts on the table brings us to this fascinating framework in the source material, the nominal group technique.
Or NGT.
NGT. I love how this physically structures the flow of communication. Let's apply this to a real-world scenario.
Okay, let's go.
Imagine a panicked marketing team trying to handle a sudden PR crisis.
Stressful.
Very. If they just sit in a room and shout ideas, the loudest person dominates, right? How does NGT change that dynamic?
Well, NGT radically shifts that dynamic through 4 specific steps. In your PR crisis scenario, step 1 happens in total silence.
Oh, wait, total silence?
Total silence. Before the discussion even begins, every individual privately writes down their ideas, information, or solutions for handling the crisis.
So no brainstorming out loud?
None. The brain is forced to generate original thought rather than reacting to a primary stimulus.
That kills the anchoring bias immediately.
Exactly. Because there's no first voice to anchor to.
That's brilliant. Okay, what's next?
Step 2. One person compiles all those private ideas and shares them with the entire group.
Okay.
Step 3. The group finally discusses the gathered information systematically, item by item.
So now they're actually talking.
Right. And then step 4, the group votes on the tenable alternatives at the end.
Okay, I want to stop at step 2 for a second, the compilation phase.
Sure.
The source suggests that when you collect the information, you should anonymize it.
Yes, it does.
I really struggled with this part of the text, to be honest.
Why is that?
Because isn't true, impactful communication about having the courage to stand behind your ideas? Like, if I have a brilliant insight on how to fix this PR crisis, shouldn't I own it?
I see where you're going.
Yeah, like hiding behind anonymity feels like it strips the conviction right out of the room.
On a philosophical level, you could definitely argue that. But if you look at the actual mechanics of group dynamics, anonymizing isn't about hiding at all.
What is it about then?
It's about neutralizing social hierarchy. It's neutralizing the halo effect.
Ah, okay. So instead of the halo belonging to the polished slides,
The halo belongs to the boss's title.
you nailed it.
Think about it. If the VP of marketing floats an idea for the PR crisis, everyone suddenly nods along because it's the VP.
Even if the idea is terrible.
Exactly. But if the quietest intern floats a brilliant strategy, it might get ignored simply because they lack social capital.
That is so true.
Anonymizing feedback removes the intimidation factor. It forces the team to evaluate the substance of the idea, the what, instead of being influenced by the who.
It separates the idea from the ego.
Exactly. It lets the objectively best strategy win.
Okay, I'm sold. But even if we strip away the boss's halo and get all the ideas evaluated fairly using NGT, the group still has to choose one path.
Right.
And choosing one path inherently means killing someone else's idea, which creates conflict.
Inevitably.
So how does a leader communicate critical feedback without destroying the team's morale?
Well, this is where we move into the phase of bulletproofing the decision.
Okay.
To navigate that conflict safely, Flynn recommends using the devil's advocate role. But there's a crucial modifier attached to it.
Rotate.
Yes.
You have to rotate the devil's advocate. This stood out to me so much because every single office has a Dave.
We all know a Dave.
Right. Dave is the guy who always plays the devil's advocate. And eventually, Dave just becomes the office pessimist.
Yep. People stop listening to him because they think, oh, here goes Dave again, just shooting down everything we build.
Exactly.
Yep.
It just becomes noise.
And that's why rotation is brilliant. If you rotate the role, being a critic is no longer a toxic personality trait. It is a vital structural function of the meeting.
It's just a hat you wear for the day.
Exactly. The research points out that by explicitly assigning different people to this role, you allow the group to aggressively test the strength of a decision without making it personal at all.
It basically gamifies the conflict. You say, okay, Sarah, your job today is to poke holes in our launch strategy.
Right.
You're giving her explicit permission to be critical, which keeps the communication collaborative rather than combative.
It completely removes the social stigma of disagreeing. Now, besides playing with roles to bulletproof decisions, Flynn also suggests playing with time.
Time.
Yeah, especially for really complex issues.
Right. The temporal strategies, like the second chance meetings.
Yes.
Instead of trying to hammer out a massive, highly nuanced decision in one brutal 4-hour marathon meeting, you split it into 2 shorter meetings with time built in between.
Because subconscious processing is a real thing.
It really is.
When team members step away from the pressure cooker of the conference room, their brains continue to process the information in the background.
While they're driving home or taking a shower.
Exactly. And they often return to that second meeting having identified blind spots they couldn't possibly see when they were anchored in the heat of the moment.
Speaking of blind spots, that leads us to the other time-based strategy, which honestly might be the most fascinating concept in this entire deep dive.
Oh, I think I know what you're going to say.
A premortem.
The premortem is an incredibly powerful psychological tool.
It really is.
Mm.
A premortem's basically scenario planning, but with a twist. It's like writing the obituary for your project before it even launches.
I love that framing.
You sit the team down and say, okay, imagine it is 6 months from now, our new software launched, and it was an absolute unmitigated disaster. It tanked. Now, why did it fail?
And what makes that framing so impactful is how it fundamentally alters the room's communication.
How so?
If you just ask a team, do you think this project will fail? They'll hesitate. Because overconfidence bias is running high, and nobody wants to be the downer who seems unsupportive of all the group's hard work.
Right, they just smile and nod. Looks great, boss.
Exactly. But when you declare that it has already failed and ask them to explain the mechanics of why, you change the task entirely. You are actively soliciting downside risks.
You're making it perfectly safe for them to voice those nagging doubts they've been too polite to bring up.
Yes. You pull that vital, protective information out of the shadows and into the open.
Okay, so we have this incredible toolkit now. NGT, rotated devil's advocates, second chance meetings, premortems. But frameworks don't run themselves.
They certainly don't.
They require a leader to orchestrate them, which shifts the focus directly onto you, the listener.
Right.
How do you personally need to behave? How do you need to communicate to be an impactful facilitator? Because if you just hand out a worksheet and cross your arms, none of this works.
It definitely doesn't. And the Stanford research highlights a really vital distinction regarding your persona as a leader.
What's the distinction?
It is not enough to just be open-minded internally. The group must see you as open-minded.
Seen as open-minded. That's a subtle but massive difference.
It's everything.
I mean, I could be sitting at the head of the table, genuinely ready to hear new ideas, but if I'm sighing loudly or checking my phone or jumping in to correct people mid-sentence,
The group will read your nonverbal communication as closed off, and the flow of honest information will dry up instantly.
so what are the actual behavioral cues Flynn recommends to ensure we are seen as open-minded?
First, you have to actively encourage diversity of opinion, and crucially, you must hold back your own opinions at the beginning of the discussion.
Ah, because if the leader speaks first, the anchor drops.
Exactly. Another key behavior is explicitly rewarding disagreement. You have to offset the personal social cost of discord.
Make it safe to argue.
Right. When someone challenges the consensus, thank them for it. Publicly validate their contribution so the rest of the room knows it is genuinely safe to dissent.
That makes total sense.
Also, actively randomize who speaks first to prevent a predictable pecking order from forming.
There's another communication pivot in the research that I think every manager needs to hear. It's about how you respond when your team proudly presents a proposal to you.
Oh, this is a huge trap for leaders.
It is,
Okay.
because we're supposed to value process over confidence. But the natural instinct when someone pitches a bold idea is to look them in the eye and ask, how sure are you about this? Are you confident this is the right move?
Which is basically just begging overconfidence bias to take the wheel.
Right. Instead, the text argues you must ask about the process used to arrive at that approach.
Yes.
You don't ask if they're sure. You ask, how did you figure this out? What alternatives did you discard? Who outside of this department did you talk to?
Asking about the process demands rigor. It tells your team that you value thorough investigation, not just blind swagger.
It creates a culture where evidence wins over ego.
Exactly. Now, as we look at the final pieces of Flynn's research, he offers some incredibly practical advice on the rules and routines of meetings.
Let's hear it.
Routines don't have to equal boredom. You keep a team engaged by establishing rules that are memorable and clear.
The example in the source material is a masterclass in rule setting, honestly.
Oh.
We agree to disagree, but we do not agree to disengage.
Such a great line.
What does that actually look like in practice, though?
It means acknowledging that conflict is healthy, agreeing to disagree, but setting a hard boundary on professional behavior.
Okay.
If your idea isn't chosen, you don't get to pout. You can't cross your arms, stare out the window, and just let the rest of the group figure out the execution.
No sulking allowed.
Right. You are required to stay actively engaged in the process, supporting the group's final decision.
It demands continuous communication. And that pairs perfectly with the rule of who should even be allowed in the room in the first place. The group versus the loop concept.
Oh, yes. The ultimate cure for the bloated meeting invite.
The bloated invite is the worst.
It's a productivity killer. To keep meetings functional, you only invite the people who need to be actively engaged in the decision-making process.
The people who are in the group.
Exactly. For everyone else who just needs to know what was decided, keep them in the loop via an email or a memo.
Right. Don't dilute the meeting's focus with spectators.
Exactly. Which ultimately brings us to the final, somewhat humbling test Flynn poses for anyone trying to manage a meeting.
The real metric of success.
Right. How do you actually measure your communication impact? You ask yourself, what happens when you aren't there?
Wow.
If the entire system collapses the minute you take a vacation, you haven't actually built an impactful communication structure. You've just been micromanaging.
But if you've truly instituted the nominal group technique, the what-no-do sequence, the rotating devil's advocate,
Then those frameworks become the culture. They function even when the head of the table is empty.
if there is one thing to take away from this deep dive, it's that true communication with impact isn't about being the most charismatic person on a stage.
Not at all.
It is about engineering the environment. It's having the discipline to structure the flow of information and protecting your team from their own natural biases.
Well said.
We want to thank you so much for joining us to explore Francis Flynn's research today. Your mission now is to take just one of these tools and bring it into your very next meeting. You might be shocked by how much collective wisdom is just waiting to be unlocked.
And that leaves us with a rather profound realization about leadership to mull over as you go about your day.
What's that?
We spend so much time measuring impactful communication by the words we say the brilliant interjections, the persuasive arguments.
Right.
But based on this Stanford research, what if your ultimate impact as a leader is actually measured by the deliberate silence you create and the structures you build for others to speak?